Want to know more about law school gunners? Curious if they get better grades? Stay to the end as I define the term and provide you with 11 characteristics that typify most law school gunners. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoy the episode and click the subscribe button and bell if you don't want to miss any future episodes. Hi, this is Bo Baez, and today I want to discuss gunners, the best known law school stereotype. And no, it's not a person who comes to law school with a gun. That would be a gunman. Law school gunners are a common phenomena at law schools that utilize the Socratic method, and they have certain characteristics. If you meet most of these characteristics, you just might be a gunner. First, they are almost always the first students to raise a hand in class when the professor asks a question. 2, they raise their hands when another student is answering a question incorrectly. 3, they tend to raise their hands so they can publicly disagree with the professor. 4, they participate in every class session or almost every class session. 5, they raise their hands multiple times each time that class meets. 6, they tend to sit towards the front of the classroom so they can be seen by the professor. 7, the gunner will sometimes blurt out an answer even if someone else was called on to answer the question. 8, the gunner's answer tends to be longer as they wax eloquently on the law. 9, they tend to have overinflated egos, believing that they are smarter than everyone else. They accomplish this by using longer words that are not commonly used in society or even by lawyers. 10, they are overly ambitious, going far above and beyond what is required. For example, one gunner I knew would cite to law review articles that were not assigned or even mentioned in the reading. The gunner just enjoyed looking for additional law, which he then mentioned in class. And 11, they keep their hand raised for long periods of time, even when being ignored by the professor. This last strategy actually works sometimes because I get embarrassed for them and I call on the gunner just to get them to put their hand down. Now, the question on your mind, does the gunner get better grades in law school? From my experience as a law professor and from what I found doing some research, is that gunners rarely get the highest course grades. During my law school career, I clearly recall my section's gunner. He came off as exceptionally well-educated, and he seemed to understand the class material at a deeper level than the rest of us. But when final grades were posted, he suddenly became less vocal in class, as it was rumored that he did not do as well as he had hoped for. The person with the top grades was a student that I didn't know well because she was so quiet in class. Now fast forward a few years and I became a law school professor. In the nearly 20 years of teaching first-year law students, I've paid attention to the gunner and their course grade. About 20% of the time, they do end up getting the highest grade in the class. That's about once every 5 years. Most of the time, though, the gunner ends up somewhere in the top quartile. A good showing, mind you, but just not the highest grade in the class. First semester grades often have the effect of quieting the student down during the second semester of law school, though not completely stopping them. In fact, the law school gunner tends to be much more sheepish in the second semester of law school now that the wind has been let out of their sails. But in those years when the gunner is the top student, they continue their gunner behavior as the grades have validated them. One final note. Not everyone who raises their hands all the time is a gunner. Some students learn by vocalizing concepts, and they actually need to repeat some of what the professor says because that is how their brain processes new information. It's very hard to work with this kind of student in the classroom because there isn't enough time for me to accommodate this particular learning style. So occasionally, this student is misidentified as a gunner. Make sure to share your gunner stories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this material, hit the like button. Also, to avoid missing any future episodes, hit the subscribe and bell buttons. For more resources to help you get ahead, including my blog and newsletter, check out learnlawbetter.com. Thanks for watching.